My name is John Wosel, and I am the Professional Development Chair for the Georgia School Counselor Association. Wanted to start off this evening with shouting out our new president, Sean Hester, and also just wanted to make sure that we are mentioning that there are a lot of great things coming up this year. So make sure that if you are not already, become a member of GSCA. Also make sure that you sign up for the conference. Make sure you register for the conference. Make sure that you do it while there's still an early bird special. And there are lots of great things in store for the year. So we are very excited. Tonight we have with us Ms. Laura Ross and Ms. Barbara Truluck. They are going to talk about what it is going to take for you to become a school counselor of the year. And so these two women have a lot of wonderful things to say, a lot of great experience to share. So we welcome you all. We hope that you enjoy this experience and that you are able to find value in it. So last thing, let me reiterate. Make sure that you become a GSCA member. This is a perk of membership. All of this great professional development, all of this great access to wonderful minds and experience. And so if you're watching this right now and you are not a member, make sure you sign up and make sure as soon as possible you take advantage of that early bird special and get registered for our conference in Athens. All right. So without any further ado, I'm going to throw it to our lovely hosts.
Thanks, John. Okay, y'all, so we are just going to talk with you all today about the GSCA School Counselor of the Year submission process and really try to break down each component for you. Barbara and I have both been through the process. We've both been a part of looking at other applications. And so we just wanted to share some best practices and some pitfalls for you all to avoid during this process. I'm Laura Ross. I'm the lead counselor at Five Forks Middle School in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and Gwinnett County. I'm the 2020 ASCA School Counselor of the Year and currently the GSCA President-elect.
Hi, everyone. I'm Barbara Truluck. I'm a school counselor at Palmer Middle School in Kennesaw, Georgia, in the Cobb County School District. I was last year's Georgia School Counselor of the Year and thrilled and honored to be a ASCA School Counselor of the Year finalist this year, representing Georgia.
So like I said, our objectives today really are to just explain the key steps for completing the application, some best practices that we've experienced, that we've seen others do in preparing their submissions, and then share some common pitfalls so that we can help you all to avoid those in your submission process.
So each year, GSCA calls for award applications and recognizes the outstanding contributions in the field of school counseling here in the state of Georgia. And so the call for applications is open right now. And each region, the Northern, Metro, Central, and Southern region, will select up to 4 semifinalists. And then the State Awards Committee will select one person to be named the Georgia School Counselor of the Year. And then Georgia will nominate that person for the ASCA School Counselor of the Year the following year.
So just the 3 parts of the eligibility. So you must be a full-time employed practicing school counselor in Georgia as we reach the application deadline and have completed at least 4 years as a practicing school counselor. You must hold a master's degree in school counseling or the equivalent. So my master's is in social work, but I had a specialist in school counseling. So that's what they mean by the equivalent, something like that, and be certified as a school counselor in the state of Georgia. You also have to be a member of GSCA and ASCA as of November 1st in the year prior to applying. A lot of you have those requirements in your district level, so you probably already have met those, but they do look at that. And so you have to have been GSCA and ASCA member by November 1st last year.
All All right, so let's look at what the application requirements are and the guidelines. So I'm just going to briefly go over each part of that, and then we're going to go more into depth looking at each of these components. But once you go into the application portal, and we'll give you the link for that, there is some important school demographic information that you're going to put into the online portal. You're going to upload a resume, maximum 2 pages, 4 letters of recommendation, and those have a 2-page maximum. And then those 4 letters, you're going to have one from your applicant supervisor. You're going to have another one from a colleague, and then another one from a community member, like a student or a parent or a family member. And then the 4th letter of recommendation is open, anyone that you would like to use for that. Definitely these letters of recommendation, we suggest if someone gives this to you as a Word document, save it as a PDF because it's easier to upload to the application, and then it can't be changed, and things don't slide around on Word. So save it as a PDF, and then you're going to upload that. There are 5 essay questions with supplemental documentation, and we're going to go over what each one of those essay questions are. And then for the Georgia School Counselor of the Year, there's a maximum 5-slide PowerPoint that you will make, and we'll talk further about what that looks like. And so this presentation should introduce you and your school to the judges and your program, and showcase your personality and your style as a school counselor. So feel free to be creative.
So we're going to go over quickly the judging criteria, but you will see, so this is the basic judging criteria, and what you will hear us say as we go through each component of the application is, yes, there is this criteria, but you want to make it so that it shows your voice and your personality as a school counselor. Otherwise, everything can look very much the same. So you must demonstrate evidence of a comprehensive data-driven school counseling program that's based in the ASCA national model, have been responsible for school counseling innovations and programs around career, social, emotional, and academic development. And that's just what we do as school counselors. You'll need to be able to demonstrate leadership and collaboration in your work, promote equity and access opportunities to maximize student achievement. You must demonstrate continued professional development and how that has impacted your work as a school counselor, and proof of advocacy for the profession. And you must have the ability and skills necessary to represent school counseling in a professional manner, not just in written communication, but public speaking skills, and just in your program in general, as people will always sort of reflect and contact you and look back on your program to help build theirs as well. And then high standards of personal conduct. Recognize your personal conduct is held up to public scrutiny, and so there you have to maintain a high moral standard, personal and professionally, as School Counselor of the Year. So some things to kind of get you ready. There is a part of the database where you submit your application, where you need the demographic information of not only the students at your school, but there's some staff questions as well. Some of that you may have access to in a data platform, or you may need a principal or a data clerk to get to all that information. So you want to make sure you take a look at that and get exactly what you need. Go ahead and get with them now, so you give them plenty of time to gather that information for you if you need someone else, excuse me, to find that information. Some of that stuff I had to get from my principal, I didn't have access to. With your letters of recommendation, you want to make sure you've collected those ahead of time, get them in a PDF format. Some of mine ended up coming as a hard copy, and I would just did a scan and saved them as a PDF. I did ask, and this is just a tip to the letter writers, to use correct terminology and using school counselor, not guidance counselor, just because you want that to be correct in there. And I gave my writers a deadline for when I needed the letter. So I made sure that I had them in time to upload them and submit to the application. You want to go ahead and find a team of folks who can help you review your application, editing or any technology assistance in making your PowerPoint, and set up dates. Go ahead and set up dates for when you can get with them and to review it before the deadline. And then I would just say, just organize. You can use Word or Google. I created a Google folder for the application. And then I created a folder for each component, each essay, the resume and everything. So for each essay, I would type it into a Google Doc and I would copy and paste it into the application database, but also in that folder in Google, I had all my supplemental materials that I needed for that particular essay. So it was all organized and ready. So then all I had to do is just copy and paste or upload into the database. So then it makes it really easy when it's time to submit. So now we're going to share some best practices and common pitfalls. We're going to go through each of the essay questions and then as well as the essay and then the presentation PowerPoint that you will need to create.
All right, so the first essay question is, how have you advocated for the profession throughout your career? And this has a 250 to 500 word limit. And so for best practices, focus on advocacy for the profession. So talk about not only what you do inside the school building, what you do outside of the school building. How do you move and educate people about the school counseling profession? Use examples throughout your career. And then advocacy can be at multiple levels at your local school, in your district, in your community, state, and nationally. And then advocacy can include also if you've led professional development, if you've been actively involved in your school counseling association at your county level, with GSCA, with ASCA. Talk about your involvement in all of those areas. And then the pitfalls for this one is focusing on advocating for students and not the profession. So make sure that you're talking about school counseling as a whole and how you are developing, especially too, if you're mentoring new school counselors. That is another great way. Talk about, interns and mentoring new school counselors, and all of those type of things are advocating for the profession. And then another pitfall is not sharing your voice or your passion about school counselor. Laura just said, to make sure that in your letters of recommendation, you don't have guidance counselor. That's another way you're going out and you're advocating and you're educating people that we're not just guidance counselors, we're school counselors.
To the first 4 essays are 250 to 500 words, and that is not a lot. You still want your voice to shine through. Some of the essays, or essay 2, you have to just get some of the facts in there. And so you may not have your specific voice highlighted in that, but this essay 1 is a great place for you to have your voice shine and hear about your passion for school counseling. So essay 2 asks you for 2 or 3 of your school counseling program goals for last year and how you address them, and then what data that you have that demonstrates your progress in meeting these goals. So for best practices, we both use the ASCA SMART Goals template. I don't know if you get a link to this actual slideshow, but I put a link in there under the 4th edition templates. For ASCA, the Student Outcome Goal Plan has the template for SMART goals. It's just the best way to make sure you get everything included in your SMART goal. And you really want to focus on outcome data. I'm looking at how did your goal and your intervention impact attendance or discipline or academics. You want to share 2 to 3 goals. I wouldn't share just 1 goal, at least 2. And what you want to share is the data that showed you needed, that helped you kind of come up with your goal, that there was a need. and then what your goal was, what your intervention was to achieve that goal, and then the data that came out from that intervention. You can use the supplemental evidence to share more details about the interventions and data, because that's a lot to share in 500 words. So being able to make sure you upload graphs, infographics, anything that you need that are going to give even more details about your goals. Some of the pitfalls is feeling like you need to include a third goal, just to include a third goal, where it really doesn't show outcome data. For example, in my department, we always have an attendance goal, but that's not really our best goal. So when I submitted my application, I didn't include that. I included 2 goals, and one was around discipline and one was around academics. So don't feel pressured to turn in a third goal, because then that's going to be something that somebody reads. And then if it's not great, it doesn't include outcome data, then they're going to question it. A pitfall is not sharing supplemental evidence. Make sure that you are, sharing those graphs. I made some just in Word documents. You can use infographics, something to kind of, share that information and give more detail about what you did. Pitfall is only sharing 1 goal. You definitely need at least 2. And then also, if you share goals with only process or perception data, folks are really looking for outcome data. Sometimes perception data can work depending on what it is, but process data, I have read applications that only include process data, the number of students who are involved in something. And that is, and I've been with reviewers and we've discussed that, and that is not going to help you get points with that. You really need to have that outcome data. And if you don't use a SMART goal format, one, it makes it a little bit more difficult for the reader to kind of grasp your goal and understand it. But it also just takes it out of the, the ASCA template and really what our SCAs are looking for.
On this one, just on SA2, all of them really, the most frequent question that I get is what to do for the supplemental evidence. And Laura gave you some great advice. If you have written up a results report, that is a great supplemental evidence for your goals for SA2.
And I will say, I included, our man's gone overboard, but if I talked about it in my essay, I included it. So if I talked about a goal, I included the data from that goal, the graphs and stuff, but if my intervention included a lesson or a group, I included the slideshow from that lesson. I included the materials that we used just to give them an idea. So they had, because there's not enough room to include all of that in the 500 words. But that's what I use the supplemental evidence for, is so they could see those things that I couldn't articulate in those 500 words.
All right, SA3, give an example of a particularly effective collaborative effort that you spearheaded with a stakeholder population. So with your administrator, faculty, families, community. Once again, the best practices, use this essay to highlight a different part of your program than your program goals. So this may be some school-wide initiative that you spearheaded and that you put into place. So this is where you're going to share that. And remember that you don't want to just list everything that you've done. Really dive deep into one that was very impactful and really talk about the impact that program had. And then share why this was important and all of your collaboration, everyone that was involved in it. And think beyond that typical collaboration. I know the example that I used was a champion mentor group that I had at Palmer, and it involved everyone, administration, teachers, community leaders. And so really, I just went a deep dive into talking about that one intervention and the impact that it had. Pitfalls, sharing a collaborative effort that you were not part of, but had a hand in it. So you want one that you facilitated and really spearheaded. and sharing typical collaborations that school counselors do on a daily basis. Like Red Ribbon Week, I would say, is an example of that. Everybody does that. So pick something that is unique to you. And I say with this one, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So on your supplemental, do, like Laura said, a little infographic with, you could do a little scrapbook with pictures showing the intervention and all that you did. So that would be a great evidence to upload with this one.
For my collaborative effort, I had something that we did within the school. It did involve community, but it involved different programs and different groups of folks in the school. And so we have this big connections initiative and focus, and it included PD that I led for the staff. It included emails that I sent out to staff. It included book studies I did with staff. It included working with teachers to be mentors to certain students in our program. It included working with administrators so that the PD throughout the year, we kind of collaborated together and presented together. And so it touched all these different parts of our school and included so many different folks in our school building. And so when I submitted the supplemental evidence, I included the PD. I included the lessons. I included emails that I sent out. I included planning things that I done. So I included the outline of our mentoring program so that they could see all of those different pieces. So we collaborate all the time as school counselors. You really want to make it something, look at something you do that may be beyond that piece. All right, so the next essay is about professional development. So they want to hear about what types of professional development opportunities that you've participated in throughout your career and how they've contributed to your professional growth. So again, it's 250 to 500 words, which is not a lot. So you cannot share every professional development that you got excited about and implemented. You really want to highlight 2 to 3 and be very specific about what that professional development opportunity was. And it really is quality over quantity. So I would get specific, like if you're thinking of a conference you went to, what is a specific session that you went to? What did you learn from that session? So you want to describe the PD and then how you implemented that into your program, and then how it impacted you as a professional or how it impacted your students by implementing that. And it can be a session at a conference, it can be a webinar, it can be a book study, it can be a book you read on your own. If you've done some of the Ask a You trainings, it could be that. Some pitfalls, some things that people have done that you want to avoid is just listing all the PD that you've been a part of, because then it's just a list and we aren't seeing what you got out of it, and not being specific about that professional development and what you took from that and what you implemented it and how you implemented it, and then how it impacted your students or how it impacted your growth as a school counselor. For mine, I included 3. I wrote about several and then I picked out the 3 that I thought were the strongest. And one was an Ask a You specialist, and it really had an impact on me as a professional and our program in school counseling. I picked a session that I went to at a conference that I implemented and how that changed the work that I did with my students. And I got to highlight this big, huge piece of the classroom lessons that I did with my students and a project I did with them. So it's also an opportunity to bring in even more about your program that doesn't fit into the collaboration or into the goals. I got to highlight this super cool project that I do with my 8th graders because I talked about the PD that influenced that. So look for that as an opportunity to also highlight another piece of your program to give the reviewers even more about what you do. Here's the big one.
Oh, yes, the big one. This last one, essay 5, this is really where you can put your heart and soul into this final essay. It's up to 1,000-word maximum, and you're going to talk about how your comprehensive school counseling program uses leadership, advocacy, collaboration, and systemic change to make a difference for students. This is the essay where you can put your why into it, why you became a school counselor, why you're passionate about your program. The best practices, your voice should come through in this one. Talk specifically about leadership, advocacy, collaboration, and systemic change separately. Make it easy for the reader, make it easy to flow. I actually broke mine down and put leadership like as a title, and then talked about leadership, advocacy, and then talked about advocacy. This way, the reader can flow right through that. Leadership doesn't have to be a titled leadership position. It can be how you're leading change within your school and what you're doing there. And expand on your advocacy and collaboration essays. This is where you can talk even more about that and go into that depth. Pitfalls, not highlighting each theme for the essay. Don't forget there's 5 themes. Just listing accomplishments again. Here you want to tell your why. And then not letting your voice or personality shine through. This is a great place to tell a story, your backstory, that really grabs the reader and they get to know you on a personal level in this essay.
I know we said it a few times, but I can't emphasize that enough, because the reality is that all these wonderful school counselors are submitting these applications, right? And they can all kind of read very similar, right, with our goals and interventions, and they might be different, but it can read similar. And if you don't let your passion, your voice, your personality shine through, especially in the first essay and this last essay, then it's gonna feel like just another application that they just read. So you really want that to stand out. And you don't want them to have to guess where the leadership is in this essay and where the advocacy is. And so that was the tip that I got, just break it down. I didn't title mine, but I could have, because this paragraph was all leadership. This one was all advocacy. And I do want to reemphasize, you don't have to have a titled leadership position. That's great and all, but if you include that, you need to explain what you did in that titled leadership position. Don't just list it. But if you don't have that, we are leaders in our buildings because nobody else has the training and experience and the perspective that we do. So what is it that you're doing as a school counselor that's different from it? That's leadership as well. So that's something you can highlight in that leadership area too. It's a great way of also, if you were like, I couldn't fit this into the advocacy essay, I couldn't fit this into the collaboration essay, there's a place for you to put it in and get that part in there. All right, so there is now instead of a video, there's a short presentation that you submit, a maximum of 5 slides in a PowerPoint. You're going to highlight aspects of your program, some that may be included in your essays, but also highlight the things not included in your essays. So when I submitted, I had to do a video. They have everything in your application and your supplemental evidence. So make this something new and different. Again, ways to pull in other parts of your program and things that you do to highlight all the things you do. So with your slides, you can get creative. It can be more than pictures and text. You can talk about an event and link it to your website that has more information about your event. You can embed a video, but I would make it a short video. I think there's nothing wrong with a 1 to 2 minute video where you can really put your personality out there. So if you do have a video, make sure it shows your personality. And then always make sure your links in videos work. And I think the best practice for this is sending it to someone else who's not in your Google or in your links that already come up, and let them click the links and videos and make sure that they work. As far as the pitfalls, so it's a kind of a balance. You can include too much, you can include too little. I have looked at presentations that had a 10-minute video in them. I've looked at presentations that have, multiple links per slide, and that's just too much. Reviewers are going to stop watching the video. They're going to stop clicking on links. So you don't want to give them too much, but you don't want to give them too little. If you have pictures and you don't have any text or links explaining what's going on in those pictures, then that's too little. So you want to give them enough information so they understand what you're sharing, but you don't want to go over the top and wear them out in looking at your presentation. Pitfall, not checking those links or videos. I've seen those as well, where the link doesn't work, the video doesn't play. So that's why I say get somebody else to check it so it's on their system, their computer, because sometimes when we do it on our own, it automatically brings it up because we've been working on it. And I think another pitfall is only repeating what is already in your application. There are times where it's going to overlap, but include more. We all do so much more. So, it's like we have our program goals, but if you've applied for RAMP, it's like, I want to give you so much more information because we do so much more than what these applications allow for us. So think about highlighting that, showing your personality, make it fun and creative, eye-catching, but don't overload their senses either. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Because Barbara, you did have to do one of these, right? For your...
I did. I was the first year that we had the PowerPoint as part of the application. On mine, I made it look like a scrapbook with pictures explaining the 5 different slides, but underneath, really important, it, like Laura said, is to put a caption so the judge or the reader knows what that picture is of. I've seen it 2 ways. I've seen counselors do one slide for leadership, one slide for advocacy, one slide for collaboration. I did 5 different slides. One was my why, one was an intervention with kids, one was an intervention school-wide, one was a small group. For example, on my Stress Busters slide, I had a short video link there with kids talking about the intervention, some pictures, and then I had my outcome graphs. So the one PowerPoint slide was just the Stress Busters intervention. So you could do it that way. So just be creative, but just make sure that when the judge is looking at it, they know what they're looking at.
Absolutely. And make sure they know a link is a link. So I know you can embed links like into pictures and stuff, but if they don't know that it's there, they may miss it. So just make sure
like an arrow, click here. Click
Absolutely.
Here.
You want to make it as easy on them as possible. All right, we have resume. So I think Barbara and I both agree. You don't want to think I'm applying for a school counseling position and include all the things on that. There's some things that just don't need to be on there. You want to make sure that everything on your resume is school counseling related. We don't need to know that you worked at Target at some point in your life. And make sure everything is relevant. The work experience, the education, the certification, awards, recognitions, leadership opportunities, presentation, publications. I think those are all the categories that I used on mine. And I made sure everything that was in there related to school counseling. I had work experience that wasn't in school counseling, but it was related, and I did include that. It's also a part of my story of why I became a school counselor. So it was important to include that. Keep it to 2 pages. Again, I know some folks are super presenters and we have a lot of things that we can put on there, but we got to kind of cut that somewhere and maybe highlight some of the big things or the things that you're most passionate about. So pitfalls, including things that are unnecessary. You don't need an objective. This isn't like you're applying for a job. Including irrelevant information. I've seen essays that look really cute, y'all, but I don't need a list of character traits that make you a good school counselor. It's fluff, and it feels like you're just trying to take up space rather than having things to share in your resume. And so when you start to take those things out, then it shows where there's a limit in work experience or recognitions or leadership. So you want to make sure that everything in there has a purpose and meaning. And I think a pitfall is prioritizing the aesthetics of your presentation over the content in your resume. You know, mine is very plain, and it just has things listed. I've seen beautiful resumes that also have great content, but I've also seen beautiful resumes that are colorful and wonderful, and there's their picture and all this stuff, but the content is lacking. The content is what the reviewers are going to focus on.
Again, make sure to save it as a PDF, because when you open it in a Word, things tend to slip and slide. When you open it on an online portal, sometimes things move around. So again, save it as a PDF and then upload it to your application that way. Right. Reminders.
Yeah, go ahead.
Get multiple eyes on your application. So ask several people to read it. I know I asked my co-counselor to look over it. I asked our lead language arts teacher at Palmer to take a look at it. I ran it through Grammarly, which is a great resource to check for punctuation and grammar and everything. And then I love that we have this in there. Someone who doesn't know school counseling and have an extra set of eyes from that perspective look at it. 500 words is not a lot for the essays, so make sure that you include the supplemental evidence to help provide more details and support. Since you have that opportunity, go ahead and use it to really spotlight. And then use graphs and infographics to make that data more appealing and easy to read, just like you would in your RAMP application. Make sure those graphs are easy to read. The X and Y axis are both labeled. There's a title. Any graphs that someone can just look at it instantly and be able to see it and know what that data is telling the story of.
And I always include getting someone who doesn't really know school counseling to read it, just so it can be read and make sense to somebody because other school counselors get what you mean, even whether you actually said that or not. So you just want to make sure it makes sense to anybody. And it could be a family member or a friend, just to go over it so that it makes sense to them. And yes to the supplemental evidence, because you can try to get everything into that essay. And there still may be kind of a question mark with the reviewer, but that supplemental evidence will help clear it up or give them more information that they need to understand it.
Laura, one interesting fact I'd like to throw out there that I learned through this whole process, going from Georgia School Counselor application to the ASGA application, I just assumed that everyone looking at the application for National School Counselor of the Year were all counselors or in the profession. And they weren't. There's community members, there's CEOs, there's all kinds of business people on the selection committee. So that's great advice, because there are going to be people outside of the profession looking at the application should you move to that level. And Laura can speak about that better.
Yeah, so there was somebody from NACAC, there's consultants, just educational consultants. There's somebody from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Oh my gosh, there's administrators. There are some practicing school counselors on there. We don't make up the majority of the review team for that. So it definitely, you want it to make sense you don't want to assume they know school counseling in reading your essays. So the deadline's coming soon in August. So there is a link. If you go to georgiaschoolcounselor.org, under recognition, they have all of the nominations for recognition. Counselor of the Year is on there, so you can get the steps to apply. And then there is the application portal. And like I said, I would do it all outside the portal and get it tweaked and looked at, and then easily just copy and paste then into that portal. It'll start with your information. It'll go into your school demographics. So that's why you need all that stuff ready. And then there'll be where you can copy and paste your essays in there, start uploading your supplemental evidence, and then uploading your PowerPoint. And Barbara, I'm not sure, and if you can remember back, because I just did a video, did it have to be, it had to be in a PowerPoint to upload, correct?
It did, but again, I converted it to a PDF.
Okay.
Open a PowerPoint, things can slip and slide. So you want to toggle everything down in that PDF. So take your PowerPoint, save it as a PDF, and then upload that.
All right, so that's what we have for you all, but we want to see if anyone has questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see if there are any questions from anyone.
There is a good question here, Laura. What if you don't meet your goal? Does that look bad? So I think that question came up when we were talking about SA2 and your goals and your results reports.
So I think it works just like the RAMP application. You don't have to have met your goal. What's important about it is that you use data, you looked to decide what you should do. And if you didn't reach your goal, your reflection on that, on why you didn't reach your goal, what are the implications in moving forward, because you still have that data and you still want to do something to intervene. So what did you learn from what you did that year that maybe some things worked, not all of it worked, what didn't work? As long as you can reflect on that and explain that and say, okay, moving forward, this is the part that we were missing or are going to try, then it's fine. It's not a requirement that you met the goal or did this like amazing thing in order to get the recognition of School Council of the Year, because we all know we
Yeah,
we have those years, year after year. There's some of that stuff that's just tough. So we keep trying and doing things. So
absolutely. Any other questions? Has there been any discussions about reviewing 2019 due to pandemic year? Oh, the 2019 goals.
I haven't heard. I definitely think it's something that Barbara, you and I can also make sure that is shared with the recognition committee for GSCA this year, and considering that. I know they did with RAMP applications for that as well. So I think one is explaining it a little bit in your essay, but we might need to do a little reminder of the recognition committee just so that all the reviewers keep that in mind. I don't think they're
right
yet about the pandemic here, but just to keep it in mind when they're actually reviewing.
Yeah, that's a good point. We'll do that.
I'll definitely get that information out there. Tisha, I know you're working on your ASCA. Just get your personality in there, and you have to do a video for ASCA, correct, Tisha?
Yes, I do. I have to do a video. Thank you so much.
Yeah, just show that personality.
Yep.
Don't repeat what's in your application. Just give them something different. Show them that you can speak about school counseling, because that's really what it is at the ASCA level. You are then an ambassador for school counseling in the nation, and you are speaking on school counseling to everyone, and they want to make sure that you're able to do that, and that you have a good personality to do that and get people's attention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Mine is not a question, but I want to say thank you so much, ladies, for doing this, because I have talked to individuals who have applied in the past, and it's been a daunting and overwhelming process for people. But I think having a support system and having it explained the way that you all did today is amazing. And it just helps to kind of make the pieces fit together and help you understand exactly how things need to be laid out. So I want to say thank you so much, and I appreciate you guys for doing this today.
Oh, you're so welcome.
That's really was the goal of this, to kind of just clarify it and break it down so it didn't, because yes, it can be overwhelming and daunting when you see all of this. And I'll put my email in there, so if anybody has further questions about if you're stuck on something, just email me and let me know, and we can talk through that. together.
Okay, and I just put mine in as well. It does feel like a little bit of a mini ramp application as you go through, but you know, it certainly is doable, and we wish you all very best of luck. And remember that in Georgia, 3 counselors are recognized. We'll have the Georgia School Counselor of the Year, but then there's 2 runners up as well. So good luck to everyone.
Question. All right, well, if something comes up, you have our emails, just let us know. And we'll be glad to kind of walk you through it or talk things out so it helps make sense for you in your application.
Thank you all for coming today.
Thanks. John, is there any last things we need to do before we end? Since you are official professional development chair.
So absolutely, I think that you all should pat yourselves on the back for a wonderful presentation. Aside from that, I just wanted to say congratulations to Dr. Dula. Yeah, our current Georgia School Counselor of the Year, representing Gwinnett and Georgia very well. We appreciate that. And thank you to everyone who was able to join today. And my last reminder is for you to guess what, to make sure that you are a member if you're not already, and to make sure that you sign up and take advantage of that early bird special. This year's conference is going to be great because we haven't seen each other in a long time for many of us. And if you didn't make it to Ashker, you need to make it to Athens. All right. So thank you all again for joining us today. And please don't hesitate to reach out to, Barbara and Laura. They are very approachable, very receptive, very supportive. And so they will get back to you. So take advantage of these wonderful opportunities that GSCA has to offer. Enjoy your evening, and please reach out to us if you have any questions or support or want to get involved. Take care.
This is recorded, so if you have peers who need this information, it's being recorded and it will be posted in the GSCA webinar section as well. All right, good night, y'all.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you.